Hello, everybody. It's Gary Stuckey with Real Music. Hope you're doing okay wherever you are today. Got a great show right now. I've got Iain Matthews, singer songwriter and musician of the band Matthews Southern Comfort. You might know that band had a hit song back in the 70s called Woodstock. That's right. Remember that song? And he had a solo single hit a few years later called Shake It. Man, I love that song. It brings back some memories just listening to that. And we're going to talk about those songs and the fact that he's got a brand new album coming out on October the 25th called How Much Is Enough? And that is the question of the day. How much is enough for him? Because he's saying this is the last album. Will it be? We'll find out today. But here he is. Here's Iain Matthews. But anyway, you've got a new album coming out, right? On
I do.
October 25th
That's right. Yeah.
called How Much Is Enough? Now, I have a question for you. How much is enough?
Well, maybe this is enough. Who knows?
Is is that
Um,
is that something that you think about a lot? Now, I know you probably struggle with the idea of saying, is this it? Because there's creativity floating around in your mind and you never,
exactly.
right, you're never going to stop. You just have to go, this is it, and I'm going to go fishing or something. I don't know, but wait, how do you decide when it's
I've
enough?
been, yeah, I've been trying to figure it out, Gary. I just, I look at my my catalog, and I believe I've made more than 40 solo albums,
Wow.
and then if you bring all the band stuff into it, it's close to 70.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of my motivation to try and figure out a way to stop. But once you're a songwriter, it's kind of like a virus. I've been developing this thing for so long, for 50 years, and just to think that I can turn a faucet and it will go away is totally unreasonable. So I'm trying to figure out. I realize now it has to be done in stages, and maybe the first stage is not to stop writing. It's not to stop recording. The first stage I think, is to slow down with the touring. I think if I can get the touring under control, then I can look at the other stuff. Um, and having said that, everyone I speak to about this record, I'm telling them that it's my final solo album, with the hope that it will sink in for me too.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't mean that I won't make more records, because I have other little outlets that I can pursue. But if I can get a handle on the solo albums, then again, maybe one by one I can eliminate the process and
Right.
and,
Well, I
and
mean, that's
reach a
okay.
place where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody's going to argue if you decide to do like five more. They're not going to say, "Hey, you said,"
Yeah,
they're going to be okay.
and I did kind of indicate about 10 years ago, when my last solo album came out, that that may be the final one. I never said it would be the final one. So this time I'm saying it will be the final one. And maybe for me that will sink in, and I won't need to make any more solo albums.
Well, that's a big statement, but like I said, it's either way, it's going to be all right. It's well deserved break for all these years of touring and playing and recording, through all these 70 albums. It's crazy to think, that you've been doing it that long. That's a lot of years and a lot of
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
albums, great music.
And it takes its toll. It's not the writing, it's not the recording. It's just the consistency of what I'm doing on the level I'm doing it at.
Yeah.
I don't do it. I don't tour on a luxurious level. I tour on a real grassroots level. I don't have booking agents. I have a booking agent in the UK, and that's it. So
Mhm.
anytime I come to the USA, I have to put it together myself. I have friends around the US that will help me and give me pointers and stuff, but at the end of the day, I have to do it myself. I don't have anyone doing it for me. I don't have a manager. I don't have a booking agent. I'm just a one-man show, and that kind of takes its toll, you know?
But at the same time, you're in charge of that, and it's like you get to decide a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean that's the good side of it.
That's the
Yeah.
good side, yeah. Um, well, with this new album, I mean, is the is there the same excitement there when you're recording? You got new songs, you're putting them together. Is that same excitement that you had back in the '60s? I mean, is there the same kind of feeling, when you're getting ready to record? You
Yeah,
get the feeling, and you're like,
it
"Oh,
it
this."
it never really changes. It's the process, you know. There's a process that you go through to get to the studio, and by the time you hit the studio, it's all guns blazing at that point.
Right,
And it never that creative process of recording your songs from being these simple acoustic guitar and vocal things to full-blown productions, it never ceases to amaze me, and it never ceases to excite me. I mean, there's just the endless possibilities of what you can do with a song. It's always there. Yeah.
so where did you get the inspiration for this new album? You've got different kinds of ideas, a lot of great songs I've been listening to in different kinds of styles, different kinds of thoughts. uh
Yeah.
what was the inspiration behind it?
I've gotten more into co-writing these days too, to try and push the boundaries of what I'm capable of doing. And by co-writing, I send my lyrics to writers that I know in different parts of the world, and mostly within Europe these days. But I try and challenge myself that way by, like the song on the album Rhythm and Blues. It's something I could never have written by myself. Of course, I wrote the lyric, but I didn't know what to do with the lyric. And I
Yeah,
have a friend in Norway who's in a rock and roll band in Norway, and the moment that I finished the lyric, I thought, Freddie,
wow.
Freddie is the guy. He's the one that can make this into a song. And that kind of that I get inspiration from that too. I don't think it's at this point in my career. I don't think it's a necessity that the songs sound like an Ian Matthews song. I think uh, definitely for me, it's not a necessity. Like I say, I want to see how far I can push this thing with by employing different styles of writing and then putting them all together with a sort of a unifying sound.
Right. And those sounds can be heard, you can tell that you've done that. I mean, you can tell you kind of work with different people for a different sound, which I guess you got your basic sound, but there's different elements that kind of stand out because I'm hearing like bluesy kind of songs and maybe
Yeah,
uh Crosby, Stills and Nash or something, or some kind of folksy kind of a sound in there. I mean, it sounds like you're having fun uh writing and
absolutely.
recording, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in there, and I'm fortunate that I work with a guy that I've been recording with for the last 15, maybe 20 years, and he and I know each other so well. And it's his studio, and he's just up the road from me. He's about uh, 15 miles up the road, and he's a multi instrumentalist. There's nothing he can't play, and we just sit and I put down my acoustic guitar, and we bring a drummer in, and he lays down the drum tracks, and then I just sit with BJ, and I say, how about what if we were to put a little banjo on this? I know it sounds weird, but what if we put banjo on this? How would it sound on this kind of a song? Well, let's try it, he says. And that's the process that we go through. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, and we try stuff until we can look at each other and say, yeah, that's working.
And that's got to be fun when you've got people like that to kind of bounce off ideas and try stuff and it probably makes it more exciting and probably harder to stop
It
recording.
is. It
Right,
is. And that's, again, that's the beauty of working with him because, um, I just pay him a lump sum to make the record. And then he says, okay, however long this takes, that's what we're going to do. So
right,
some days we'll go in for maybe 4 hours and nothing will happen and we'll just call it a day. Other
right.
times we'll go in and we'll be there for 12, 13 hours because it's just
Wow,
going so well.
right,
Uh, and for me, that's a luxury to be able to work that way. Just let the songs speak for themselves. And if they develop, then you follow it. If they don't develop, you just kind of sit back and move on and think about what you want to try next.
right. Um, and there's a song on there called "Ripples in a Stream." I love that song. Now, is this
Oh,
song
thank
about you? Is this an
Yeah,
autobiographical song? Okay, because it
yeah.
sounds like something that you would say. And so in that metaphor, compare yourself to ripples in a stream. How are you that ripple?
I, that's how I feel. I've in terms of longevity, I've had a long career. In terms of visibility, I've had moments when I've been more visible, but in general, um, I kind of my career sort of sits in the lower third lower third of the music scene. Um, and there are superstars and there are stars, and then there's the rest of us. And I see myself as being one of the rest of us, a ripple in the stream, or a pebble in the road, or
Well, how do you think it would have been different? I mean, would you have rather been anything other than a ripple, or what if you were, you know, Mick Jagger or somebody? Would your life what would it have been like
well,
to
I can't imagine dealing with that. It's God knows it's difficult enough functioning at this level. I can't imagine being someone like that. Um, I mean, I know he calls his own shots, but um, he has he has people that do it for him, and I guess it's that way for everyone that functions on that level. You have people that do it for you, and you tell them what you want. But for me, it's not the same as knowing what you want and then going about it and doing it yourself. There's a purity about working on this level that I can't imagine you would you would feel um, if you were somebody like Mick Jagger, for instance.
I think the pressure, there's a lot of pressure to be, of course, you're always busy. Of course, they have expectations of you and to sound a certain way, to run around the stage, to be in front of all these people on a regular basis for so many years. And you can kind of pretty much decide, I'm going to tour a little bit here. I'm going to take a break. There's not a lot of
Yeah,
pressure as far as you can kind of go where you want to go. There's not a lot of people kind of
that,
pulling your strings saying,
that's a big
you got,
one.
you got to be in London, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, you can kind of relax. And I'm on that bandwagon. I would rather
Yeah.
be the guy behind the scenes that can go home and relax than being that guy that's out there all the time, stressed out, you know.
And I can walk down the street in any city in the world, and chances are 1 in 1,000 that somebody's going to recognize me.
Right.
I can count on one hand the times when that has happened, when somebody's actually stopped me and asked me, "Are you?" And
Right.
I like that. I like being able to have the anonymity. It's kind of it's kind of a trade-off, but at the same time, I just like being one of the people. rather than put on a pedestal.
Right.
I just, I'm doing this for the music, Gary. I always have and I always will. I do it for the music. I do it because I love music. I love listening to music. I love writing. I love creating. Um, it's all about the music for me. It's not about any kind of fame or stardom.
Right. Well, I was just thinking though, have you ever been like in a grocery store and they're playing a song like Woodstock or something over the speaker? And I've heard that song a lot over the speaker. Has anybody ever, I mean, have you ever went up to somebody and said, that's me? You know, and they're buying the bread, and you're paying and you're like, that's me singing that song, just saying.
No, but I've been with people when that's happened and they've said, that's him.
That's him. They're like, no way.
And they look at you like, yeah, right. That's him. Yeah. Yeah, he's on the radio and he's here buying a bottle of milk. Yeah, right.
Sure. You got to buy milk. The guy's got to live. He should, Oh, speaking of that song Woodstock, taking it back, I love that song. Is that, and I know you've been asked these questions through the years, but a song like that, how'd y'all decide to do a song like that? When you're doing a cover of somebody else's song that's already out there,
Yeah.
famous,
Yeah.
you're kind of pitting yourself up against somebody, and it's almost like you gotta, go big or go home. How did y'all manage to make that? Was a big hit and number one, I think, in the UK. And
Yeah, it was, and purely by accident. Again, I really believe that a lot of this business is just being in the right place at the right time, just where that whole thing aligns. If you're right there at that particular time, good things are going to happen. Um, with that song, we were the BBC in England. In the late 60s, early 70s. I don't know if it's still the case, but they were only allowed to play they called it needle drop time. They were only allowed to play a certain amount of pre recorded music. And they got around it by getting artists to go into their own BBC studios and recording, um, say, 4 or 5 songs a couple of times a year. And that way they had an extra album's worth of music they could play if they needed to. And we were due to do a BBC session. We were a pretty new band at the time, so there was a buzz going around. And we had 4 songs and they wanted 5. I was in the West End of London and I saw the Joni album had just come out. I went and bought it and I had it under my arm when I went to rehearsal with the guys. And they said, well, we need this 5th song. What are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. Let's listen to this album. And we put Joni's record on and we just played them song by song. And at the end of the record, I asked the guys, what do you think? And we all agreed that song Woodstock, we could do something with that. And we figured out, we had about 4 hours in the afternoon before the session. We worked out an arrangement and we took it with us to the session. We recorded it for the BBC and they used that broadcast, I think about a week later, and they were inundated with phone calls. That song about Woodstock, what the hell is that? And how can we get it? And the DJ said, well, it's Matthew Southern Comfort. I don't know how you can get it. Let me see if I can find out. He called our manager, and our manager didn't even know we'd recorded it. They called the record company first. That's what it was. They called Universal, and Universal said, we don't know anything about it. They have a new album ready to come out, but it's not on there. So they called the manager, and the manager said, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Let me see if I can find out. And by the time it got back to me, the record company were just totally overloaded with requests for the song. And they sent us in the studio that following week to record it, and they pulled a song from the album and they put it on the album, and they put it out as a single. because of the demand for the BBC recording. And it's funny because it took forever to be a hit. When it first came out, the Crosby, Stills and Nash version was kind of hovering in the lower 40s of the British charts. Um, and we couldn't, ours couldn't really make a dent. And then a very famous DJ in England, Tony Blackburn, made it his record of the week. And he had a drive slot from, I think, from 3 in the afternoon till 7 in the evening, and he played it every hour, and it just started to sell, and it went into the charts, and it got to number 10, and I remember thinking, I've made it. I've gotten in the charts. I've gotten in the top 10 in England, and then the following week we we started getting phone calls saying this record is starting to sell. We're selling 30,000 copies a day.
Wow.
And by the time they put out the new chart, it had jumped from number 10 to number 1.
Wow.
Just purely by accident. The whole thing. I mean, we did our bit, we put our creative efforts into it and made a really nice arrangement of it. But the rest of it, just the stars aligned, and there it was.
Well, did you ever hear from like Joni Mitchell or Crosby, Stills and Nash, and what did they say as far as, you know?
We ended up,
Mm,
yeah, we
I like
ended
my
up doing,
version.
we ended up doing uh, a show at the London Palladium with James Taylor, and James and Joni were an item at the time, so she she was along on the trip with him, and we had our picture taken with her. We chatted with her. Um, she saw the show. She heard the song, and she never said anything at all about it. But
She,
get this, Gary. About 5 years ago, um, I was doing a festival in England, and the headliner was Graham Nash. And I'd met Graham briefly back when he was in the Hollies, but we didn't really know each other. And we ran into each other backstage. And he looked at me, and he pointed at me, and he said, "Your version's better than ours." And I
he's
thought,
right. He's
"Whoa,
right. Hey, but I mean, it takes a lot to say that. But
yeah,
honestly, I'm sorry, Joni, but that's the better version. And sometimes that's how it works. Sometimes you do a cover, and I think you find whatever the song was meant to have. I mean, I think there's a certain flow, the way you're playing. There's a mellow kind of a sound in that, in the way you're singing. It's like it kind of strikes a nerve within you. And I don't think
mm,
the other songs quite, not that they're bad. It's just something about that that kind of gets you, and you're like, yeah, that's a good,
yeah." There's just that little emotional
yeah,
content that is hard to pin down on the other two versions.
definitely. And that's what it's all about, I guess, when you're recording, kind of like with the new album, when you're writing songs, and you're recording and trying to find that certain sound, these certain lyrics, and you're trying to see what works, and then you
Yeah,
realize, hey, that works. You know,
exactly.
is there a song on this new album that really, and I know we talked about the Ripple, but is there another song that kind of sums up your career or makes you think about it in a big way?
Not really. I mean, the closest I come to that is really with rhythm and blues, but that's not about me. That's just about my experience with uh the well, I was going to say with black music, but it's more than that. It's about the black culture in general. Um, there's really I try and not write about myself if I possibly if it's possible. Yeah. Um, so a song like Ripples in a Stream, it's a pretty rare thing for me to put down. Um, it's funny because I've just been working on a new song. Um, I'm trying to convince myself to slow down and back off. And I've just finished a new song called "I'm Giving It Up,"
Or at least
just
it's
just to see if I can,
and and next year you're going to come out with an album called "I Swear This Is the Last Album." I done
Yeah,
told you.
it's called. I was just
Yeah,
joking.
I was joking. I swear. Don't quit messing with me. Leave me alone. Uh, there's some songs on here that I was checking out. The Bird and the Fish. Now that's a folksy kind of a sound. Is that
I'll, I'll
that
tell you how that
that's
song.
good?
That song is a typical. It's a typical example of me finding my inspiration from just everyday things. I'm an avid reader, and I recently, in the last year, I got into reading a guy called Richard Powers. Have you heard of Richard Powers?
That sounds familiar. What's
He he wrote a book um, that won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature, a book called The Overstory. And whenever I see that a novelist has won the Pulitzer, I have to read that book to see what it's all about. And I was absolutely fascinated, A, by his subject matter and B, by his writing, to the
right?
point where I just went ahead and ordered three or four others, just looked at his catalog and thought, I'll have that, and that. And one of the books that I bought was a book called The Time of Our Singing, and it's a book about um, an interracial marriage between a uh, I think she was from Philadelphia, a black woman from Philadelphia, and a German Jew. And in the book, he likens that relationship to the bird and the fish. He says in the book, if the bird and the fish could fall in love, where will they build their nest? And I thought, oh, that's just heavy stuff.
That's good.
I'm going to try and write a song about that. That's really great stuff.
Right.
And that's typical of where I find a lot of inspiration for my songs. I get it from books, from listening to people talking, um, watching movies, um, just being there, just being observant all the time, and being open to things being said that are good for a songwriter.
Right. And that there's so many things, like you said, that you can be watching TV and somebody says something. I guess one day somebody's going to say, I coined that phrase. And you go, oh, I wrote a song about what you said. I'm sorry. But I mean,
Yeah,
but
it
that
hasn't
happens a
happened
lot.
yet.
Well, I mean, that when you're writing about life, that happens all the time because sometimes people say stuff without realizing it. It's really catchy, but you take it and you make it into this abstract, you know, you have this vision of this story. Is that what you do as far as, when you're writing, do you envision the story and kind of piece it together and
Yeah,
build on it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a simple way of putting it, but yeah, that's kind of what I do. Usually I come up with a few words that may ultimately be a song title or a chorus or a lead off line for a song. Um, but if the subject matter resonates with me, um, I will. I'll see it through to the end. Uh, I rarely ever give up on songs. One way or another, the song gets written, and sometimes the first ideas about what the song should be about are never realized. Sometimes the song just kind of takes over and becomes a entity on its own and decides what it's going to be about. Sometimes I can record a song thinking that I know what it's about, and then I'll all of a sudden I'll have this epiphany. Wow, that's what this song is about. It's not about what I thought it was at all.
That's cool. That's, you know, and that just shows you how your mind works and how music works and just the flow. You know, there's certain moods you're in, or there's certain things that happen,
Hmm.
that allow songs to change. Kind of like you're making a clay model or figure, or you're painting a picture. You can always go back and paint over something that you didn't like, or decide something else, and I don't know. I
Yeah,
love
that
the
happens
idea.
too. Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, that's a good analogy because that definitely happens. Sometimes I will, for me, a song is never finished. Even after I've recorded it, it's always open to be edited. And I've got songs that I play live that I wrote 20 years ago, and I'll go back and listen to the original, and there's so many differences between the original and the way that I'm playing it, and lyrically. I just randomly just kind of change lyrics, and then that new lyric kind of sticks with you the next time you do the song, and the original lyric just kind of falls by the wayside. That
Right.
happens a lot. Yeah.
And like probably accidentally, like sometimes I don't know, maybe they just kind of fix their self. You write a song and then there's two or three words that are changed, like you say. I guess you kind of go with the structure of the song, and it kind of just fits a certain way, and certain words don't flow as well, and
Yeah.
maybe for time you're like, yeah, you kind of whittle that part off, like you're whittling, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the painting. You kind
Yeah. Yeah.
of, I don't need that. Or if you're carving something or you're doing some clay and you're like, I'll take that off here and mold that and do that. But
Yeah.
that's so exciting to me when you're creating. And I know that because I do that myself, write songs, but I know that within you, that creativity, I totally understand not wanting to stop, because in and I know you won't ever stop. You just won't do it. Like you said, I'm sure somewhere you'll be 100 years old and you'll be writing in a room. I mean, I'm just saying you won't be going, I gotta stop this stuff, because that's like stopping eating. You can't do
Yeah, it
that.
kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. I don't know. I find it fascinating to struggle with the concept of stopping. It's inspirational to think about stopping, and it triggers all kinds of stuff. And amongst all that kind of stuff, it triggers new songs too. I find myself writing songs about stopping writing songs.
And see, that's that's my dad was telling me a story. He said a friend of his, they were writing a some kind of book report. The teacher says, write about anything and turn it in. You could write about the sky is blue, and the kid comes in the next day and it's blank. She said, so what's wrong? I couldn't think of anything to write. To me, that blows my mind, because I would have wrote, I can't think of anything to write. Why?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
my mind is not working, and I'm looking. I've got ADHD, and I can, I would have this long thing of why I can't think of anything to write. I don't know, but but there's always something. That's like a painter not having anything to paint. I mean,
Yeah,
there's always something in front of you. There's always life out there. There's always something in your heart that's got to come out.
yeah,
Um,
that's right. That's right. That's right.
and,
And it doesn't have to be something long lasting, It doesn't
yeah,
it doesn't have to be something that you're going to keep and mold into a masterpiece.
right.
It's just the process. It's just if you keep the process going, that you're always going to be able to write about anything at all.
Yeah.
You're a
That's,
songwriter too, are you?
I am. I play guitar. I play about seven instruments, but that's my first love, was writing, and then writing songs. So the idea of writing is like, you know, and I like to draw too. So it's kind of like this art thing. And I know it is for you too.
Yeah.
When you have a blank piece of paper, to me, that's the most exciting thing. And it was for me as a kid. A blank piece of paper is like you can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
A blank canvas, you could paint anything you want to, and you could paint over it. You could paint a little bit, paint a lot. In songwriting, I think it's like You can write about anything. You can
Yeah.
make this happen. It might not happen. Julie might not go out with you, but she will in this song, right? So you could write about anything. I mean, you
Yeah.
could write about what you'd like to see happen, or not. And then just the ideas. And I'm fascinated with songs and songwriting. There's a song on the album that you've got called "New Dark." Uh,
New Dark Ages. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, Tell me about that song because that's a deep song, and I know
Yeah.
when you're if you turn on the TV for 5 seconds, you're like, whoa, you know, you get ideas and you think, and then you put your opinions and your, what you'd like to see happen and things like that. What's the story behind that song?
Yeah. Well, I think you know what it's about, but I began writing it at the end of lockdown. Uh, it, it's I began wondering where all that stuff, where we were going. What's at the end of all this? Is it going to be? Is society going to be changing completely? Or is there going to be a whole new set of rules after this is lifted? And then I started. I've got a teenage daughter. She's 19 now. Uh, at the time, she was what, 17, 16, 17. And I just started thinking, what's it going to be like for her at the end of all this? And I started writing the song, and with alternate verses. One verse would be about how I felt about what was going on at that particular time, and then the next half of the verse would be about her and about what she's going to be faced with. And I really did see it all developing into some kind of new dark ages. Fortunately, it didn't quite go that far. Um, but it's different, isn't it? I mean, it's not the same as it was in 2018. It's
Mm-mm.
not the same at all in so many
No.
ways. Um, there's so many new rules, and for me, it's okay. I just deal with them on a daily basis. But for her, just beginning her adult life, it's yeah, it's got to be quite daunting. We talk about it. She and I talk about it a little bit, and she knows that that song's for her,
Right.
and it is. It really, I wrote it for her.
Are there some other songs for her? Because I kind of hear some of that in these
Yeah,
songs. It sounds like a young girl and this and
there's
that. You
there's
know.
three of them on there. There's
Okay.
the Digital Girl, which is all about her and her telephone. And there's a song called It's Complicated, which is about her first serious relationship that, uh, through no fault of hers, it just kind of fell apart. And, well, you know how that is. I mean, I remember how it was for me.
Yeah.
And I just needed to try and help guide her through that and convince her that that was just one relationship. There's so much more going to be happening for you, and don't give up on it. It's complicated. That stuff is complicated.
It really is. Um, and I think it's cool that you've got all these years, of experience through life, and not just in music, but just experiences. And I know that helps her out. That is something to think about for the future of the younger generation. You know, um, you probably filled her in about a lot of stuff that isn't the same anymore, whether it's politically or just, um, you know, she might say, "What is a cassette player?" But I mean, so many things have changed,
and and
right?
she has.
What is this VCR that you talk? And it boggles my mind, and that's so cool that you know the generation that you grew up in, the generation she's growing up in, two different worlds, but you're bringing them together. And I love that you're bringing them together through music because that's like the universal thing to do. But I
Yeah,
mean, think about all the things that have changed from when you were 19 to now. And, you know, to still exist and to still experience, and y'all are experiencing them together.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thought to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just this thing that you and I are doing right now.
It's
When
nice.
I was 19, I couldn't possibly envision sitting here with my telephone in front of me talking to somebody in Alabama. just,
That's
just mind
would not
blowing.
even it boggles your mind. What's funny is it's stuff that if I even had the idea that it could happen, I would be so excited. I never would have thought that this would happen. I'm surely thankful. But I tell you this, I grew up listening to a song, uh, and to me, it was one of those songs that kind of fit in uh, to my, I don't know, just my memory and my life. Because I'd listen to the radio all the time, and I would the songs were like soundtracks to my
Mm.
life, and I would take the song and then go through my head, you know, um, and they wouldn't leave. They couldn't get them out of my head, and that's okay. And they still. Uh, so there's one song though that I really held on to. Can you tell me what that song might be that you had a hit with back in the late '70s, I believe?
Late 70s.
I guess that
Well, I think Shake It was the only other big hit that I had that was the late 70s, 78, I think, was
that
Shake It.
is it. Um, that to me though, see, because my dad was big into music. He was a DJ. I was a DJ,
Okay. Yeah.
and we would play. I played the radio. I had a little portable radio, and I'd carry it around with me. But I would listen to the radio religiously, and I would not stop. And all these songs popped in my head. So that "Shake It" song, which I know it's been in movies and it's been like played everywhere, but it's been embedded in my mind, and it has such a, I don't know, good feeling to it. And you attach memories and music together. So when I hear that song, I think I was probably like 5 years old, I think, when the song came. But I mean, so a song like that, what makes a song like that so special for people, you know, and that they can go back and listen to it and it still makes them feel that same way? Not every song
Yeah.
does that, but that's
Yeah.
a song that you go, it just makes you feel good. I don't know. It's got a certain feel to it.
It comes in feeling good, it's in a major key, and it just kind of that
Just,
it's
I love it.
irresistible. Yeah.
I love it.
And again, the creation of that was just totally flying by the seat of our pants. We sat in the studio and we worked at an arrangement. Nobody was told what to play. I mean, those guys were there because of the way they played and because of the creativity. Nobody told them what to play, and instantly when they come up with something, whether it's gonna work or not. And it was just right there, as my buddy Brad in Texas would say, that dog will hunt.
We say that around here too.
Do you
And
really? Oh yeah.
that's right. Uh, but that song though, uh, really, it stands out. But like you said, it's catchy. I was listening to it this morning. That bass line is really cool. The '70s sound too, and maybe I just have a special place in my heart because that's when I was really discovering music.
Yeah.
And there's a certain, I don't know, there's a certain style where the words and the music come together, and like no other. I think in the '70s. I think the '70s were, and the '80s, to me, are a special time because lyrically and musically, everything just came together like in a special
Yeah.
way. Um, but that song, how did y'all decide? Now that was a cover, right? So
Yeah, it was
that was another cover.
Yeah, it's a Terence Boylan song. I was living in Seattle at the time, and I had buddies that were DJs at the local FM station, and if I heard something, if they played something that I liked, I knew I could call any of them and ask them what it was. And I heard the Terence Boylan version of that song on the radio. Uh, Kind of different to what I ended up doing with it. A lot more laid back, but the essence of the song was just came right through the radio, and I knew instantly that I want to find out who that is and what that album that song is on, because I need to record that song. Just called up my one of my buddies who was on the air at the time, and he said, "Yes, Terence Boylan. It's from his album da 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 da, and I'll lend you the album. You can listen to the whole thing." And he lent me the album, and I ended up recording that and "Don't Hang Up Your Dancing Shoes," which is another Terence Boylan song too.
Awesome.
But yeah, both on the same record.
And it's, to me, when you take a song and make it your own, and you give it that special something, it proves that you have the ability. Because a lot of people can do covers of songs, and it's like, why did you mess up that song? but you didn't mess up that song. It's like you took some copper and put gold over the top of it. I mean, it's like
A lot of people are afraid to mess with songs, cover songs too, Gary. A lot of artists I know will they'll record somebody else's song, but they won't mess with it, and ultimately it just sounds like somebody else doing the same song the same way. If I'm gonna if I'm gonna take somebody's song that really resonates with me and I have respect for, I'll try and do something different with it. And if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, I can always say, well, I tried, but I couldn't make it my own.
right.
And that's the cover songs that I am known for. It's been that way with every single one of them. Seven Bridges Road is another
A good one.
big example of that. Nothing like the way Steve did it, but I heard Steve play the song on his album, and I thought, oh, that is a song for me, but what am I going to do with it?
Well, I think you probably hear something within the song and go, you probably already know in your heart how you're gonna mold it into yours, what you would do with it. That song is
I
good.
heard that it would take harmony. As soon as I heard it, as soon as I heard Steve's version, I knew it would take harmony. And that's if you can hang your hat on some part of the song, then you're already on your way to doing a worthwhile cover version of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Eagles and people like that doing. That song was written about a road just up here in
Wow.
Alabama, about I think in, up in Montgomery, I believe, on the other side
That's
of
right.
Montgomery.
Yeah, that's where Steve was living. Yeah, I think he grew up there, didn't he?
Yes, nearby. Yeah,
Yeah.
the other side of Montgomery, there's like a little community or something. But that I didn't know that. I was reading all about it, and I was like, hey, I know where that's at. Uh,
Fantastic.
but covers, to me, when you do a song justice, there have been songs I didn't know it was a cover, and I really appreciate that fact. And you listen to it, and you go, then you hear the original, and you go, this is better. And in your case, you're doing these songs, and you're making them your own. And to me, I identify that song with you as opposed to the original artist. They might get upset, like Joni Mitchell or somebody. But but I mean, but that just shows you your creativity, and you can do covers, you can do your own song, and you can
Yeah.
make it into something special, and you have this certain sound that people identify. I know your fans are happy that you've got a new album coming out. So what's been the buzz about that? What have people been saying about that excitement for a new
It's
album?
early days. It's early days. I've seen I think I've seen two reviews so far, so that it's just beginning. But people are really embracing it. they're saying really special things about it. So I'm kind of trying to come to terms with it because it's just another one of my kids. I feel the same way about all my albums, but this one, I don't know. People just seem to think that it's special, and it's early days, but we'll see if it's a generalization or whether it's just a few people that are saying that. But if the first few reviews are any indication, yeah, I don't want to get excited about it or anything. I want to kind of stay grounded with it and just accept it for what I know what it is.
Yeah.
I know what I put into it, and I know how much it means to me. But it's really nice to see people dissecting it and seeing it mean a lot to other people too.
Right. And, it has I don't know, like a certain sound, almost a nostalgic sound, that I don't know. I don't know if it has a theme or a feel to it overall, but
No, I don't think it does. No.
yeah, but it does hit on a lot of ideas that people can relate to, and there's a certain quality, like a David Bowie kind of a thing going on, uh,
Ah,
and but those elements of a lot of the people that you played with from back in the 60s, 70s, I hear those sounds in there. So it's like
ah,
you captured your life and kind of like you put pepper and salt on these songs. It was like you really seasoned them with sounds that everybody's going to love. I think that they will recognize the sounds through you, and they'll appreciate the lyrics because they can relate to them, and they'll understand. I know you came out with a autobiography a few years ago,
yeah.
and to me, that's like your songs are kind of that. And even if they don't capture, what you're all about, and actually they do, even though it might not be about you, it's coming from you or it's coming from co-writers, and you have a certain idea that kind of reflects who you are, right? So with everything
Yeah.
you do, a part of you is going out. So it's like you have this idea that you're putting out there.
Yeah, I do. I work. I like this. I like my songs to be as generic as possible, but at the same time, I work really hard on them, particularly the lyrics. I try and make each lyric into some kind of little novelette, if I possibly can. I like it to have a theme. I like it to have a beginning and an ending. And between the beginning and the ending, I like it to have some kind of story that will make people sit up and listen to.
Right.
Whether it's
And
about me or whether it's about the armed forces leaving Iraq and leaving those people behind. It's a
yeah,
story's a story.
that's right. It makes people think about it, and it makes people realize, and you've got a lot of people that can relate or they can identify with the times and with what's going on. But I really do like the album. I was listening to it earlier,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
I give it 2 thumbs up, and I think
Great.
everybody's going to like it. But I do appreciate you talking to me today,
Sure,
and
Gary. I enjoyed it too.
um, and me personally, I hope you keep going. Hey, you might say I stop, but maybe somewhere there's hope, and you show up again in a couple of years and go, I got a new album.
Well, maybe we'll be doing this again in a couple of years, and you can say, I told you so.
Something tells me that's going to happen.
Uh,
Well, thank you
Great.
so much for talking to me today. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, man. I'm sorry I was late.
No, you're good. Well, you have a good evening, and let's see what happens with that album. I think everybody's going to love it.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, man. Take
All
care.
right. Oh, you too. There he is, Iain Matthews. Brand new album coming out October 25th called How Much Is Enough. And yeah, question of the day. We'll find out, right? And great album. I've already heard it. and I think you'll enjoy it. So get ready for that and check out his website and social media accounts for more information. Until next time, everybody, always remember to keep the music real.